This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. It was a terrifying ordeal that left a 9-year-old shaken, scared, and scarred. The Norway House Cree Nation girl was brutally attacked and mauled by a pack of dogs last month. The dogs are still roaming the area, making her return home even more difficult. Her family is calling on leadership to do more before someone is killed. The CBC's Ostin Shebekiget has the story.
On a walk with her grandma, the wounds Heavenly Monius carries aren't obvious. But up close, she's deeply scarred, both physically and emotionally. 6 weeks ago, Monius was mauled by 10 dogs in her home community of Norway House Cree Nation.
Me running away from the dogs, then getting scared, crying, and falling down, and that's when the dogs got me and started biting me, scratching me.
Monius got a gash on her cheek and bites on her arm. She was flown to Winnipeg's Health Sciences Centre, and her face was stitched up from her ear down to her mouth. She's in a cast now because she can't straighten one of her arms, and she's been traveling back and forth to Winnipeg for therapy. Her grandmother, Lorraine Trout, says Norway House captured some dogs after the attack. But she says there's still lots of them running around, and she feels like leaders have forgotten about her granddaughter.
Something has to be done to those dogs before they attack someone or kill someone. Pretty soon they're going to kill somebody if they don't do anything about those dogs.
Norway House councillor Dion Clark says a bylaw for a dog registry is coming. Clark says they can't capture more dogs without knowing who they belong to. Monius is scared when she's home, and the questions don't stop.
They say, what happened to your cheek? What happened to your arm? What happened? Can you tell me the story?
Are you okay telling them, or?
Not that much. I get anxiety because when I see a dog, because there's sometimes there's dogs in my school, not in it, but around it.
Monius's smile is back, but she worries someone could get hurt the way she did. Ostin Shebekiget, CBC News, Winnipeg.
1 in 4 workers in Winnipeg are earning less than a living wage. That's according to a new study by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives and the Manitoba Federation of Labour. Those two groups are calling on the Canoe government to make changes to the rules established by former Premier Brian Pallister. CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports.
Tamara Murad and her family moved to Winnipeg 2 years ago. She works part-time and is studying to be a medical interpreter. She says it's tough to make ends meet.
You could see how the inflation is affecting our lives. Everything is very expensive. Rent, food, everything is very expensive.
She works 16 hours a week and makes $20 an hour.
For example, if you want to have a sack of grapes, it's for, it's now $10. And if you have 2 kids, they're going to eat it on one sitting.
A new report aims to improve things for struggling families. Nell Hani is with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives.
24.6% of all workers earns less than a living wage. That amounts to 171,000 workers earning less than the wage required to meet someone's basic needs.
The CCPA says the living wage in Winnipeg is $19.21 per hour, about $3 more than the current minimum wage. Kevin Rebeck is with the Manitoba Federation of Labour. He says it's time to change the rules brought in under the previous government that capped significant increases to the minimum wage.
But Cabinet has no power or authority under the current law to approve an increase that's higher than inflation, no matter how uncompetitive Manitoba's minimum wage gets. Pallister's minimum wage law will never lift low-wage workers out of poverty. No one should work full-time but still live in poverty.
According to the study, most of the workers not making a livable wage are women, at just over 57%. 16% of them are recent immigrants. 43.9% of them are in the prime of their working years, between the ages 25 and 54. 61.3% have some form of post-secondary education, and 36.4% have a child who is less than 18 years old.
The minimum wage in Manitoba is going up this fall.
Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meantime, the province is lifting the pause on its rent top-up program for low-income residents. In August, the province stopped taking requests for the Canada-Manitoba Housing Benefits Subsidy. It provides up to $422 a month for low-income people to pay rent. At the time, the province said it was overwhelmed with applications. Now, the government says it's adding $1.2 million to the benefit, and it will resume taking applications. Any application previously received will be assessed first. The Manitoba government says it's well on its way to hiring the healthcare workers it's promised. Today, the NDP government patted itself on the back, but it's made the numbers look better than they are. The CBC's Ian Fraze reports.
Today is a new day. We're staffing up healthcare.
Flanked by healthcare workers, Premier Wabkanu says his government is hiring more of them.
We gave you our word that we were going to fix healthcare. And there's still tons of work to do, but we're keeping our word.
How are you, sir?
In the spring, the NDP promised a net increase of 1,000 healthcare workers. That means Manitoba would gain 1,000 workers after subtracting the number of staff who've left.
So far this year, we've hired 873 new healthcare workers.
The Premier wasn't trumpeting a mission accomplished banner, but close.
We're going to be able to hit the targets in the second half of the year.
Many of the new hires are nurses and healthcare aides, and that physician number already exceeds the province's goal of hiring 100 this year.
This is a milestone.
In the spring, the NDP said it would hit its target with doctors, nurses, aides, and paramedics. But now they've added more professions to the list, padding the numbers. Physician residents, technologists, and other diagnostic jobs are being counted as well.
We need healthcare professionals across all professions.
But the PC's health critic says it's disingenuous for the NDP to take all the credit.
So many of the recruitment and retention initiatives of the previous government have led directly to today's announcement.
Manitoba has 1,000 vacancies for allied health professionals. Their union says it was hoping for better than just 87 net hires.
What we would like to see is vacancies posted.
But while the government was celebrating, the same isn't true for 25,000 support workers who could soon strike. One worker said watching the announcement was frustrating.
That was a real slap in the face, a real slap in the face. I would like to see him come and do our job for one day, even for 1 hour.
They'll strike on October 8th unless a deal is reached first. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meantime, as you heard, bargaining continues to try to keep 25,000 healthcare support workers from hitting the picket line. Today, the Premier weighed in, saying the current offer to workers is fair. If there is no deal reached, healthcare aides, laundry workers, ward clerks, and recreation coordinators at healthcare centres and personal care homes will walk off the job on October 8th. Staffing shortages, increasing workloads, and pay concerns continue to be issues. The unions say their members are the lowest paid in Canada, with a starting wage at around $17 an hour. Premier Wabkanu says the government is working on staffing and the current offer is a good deal.
Coming forward what we think is a very fair offer with a very good raise in it. This deal is 2.5 times more than the last deal that healthcare aides got. So again, there's more money on the table, more healthcare aides working in the system, and more help is coming.
A strike would impact communities like Winnipeg, Brandon, Dauphin, Selkirk, Portage, Winkler, and Steinbach. The final pieces are coming together for the redevelopment of downtown Winnipeg's Portage Place Mall. All 3 levels of government are set to contribute funding for the $650 million project. CBC's Bartley Kivas joins us in the newsroom. And Bartley, we've heard a lot about this project over the past, year and a half. So what else needs to be done?
Well, True North Real Estate Development is footing most of the bill on this project, but now we have a better idea how much money the company is getting from governments. True North wants to buy the mall from its Vancouver owner, buy the parkade below the mall and the rights to build above it from the Forks North Portage Partnership, and then build a healthcare tower above the east side of the mall, a residential tower above the west side, and knock down the glass atrium in the middle. Now, at a press conference slated for tomorrow, the federal government is expected to announce $10 million in money for community spaces in the project. The provincial government has already promised funding in the form of a 35-year lease in the healthcare tower. Premier Wapkaniw has said, he said in February, that will involve $77 million of new healthcare spending. And today at City Hall, City Council voted unanimously to approve $40 million worth of grants and tax relief. Mayor Scott Gillingham said he looks forward to tomorrow's announcement.
I hope for everyone's sake, the sooner this deal can get done, the better. The sooner we can see shovels in the ground at that site, the better for everybody.
True North has until the end of this month, which is in a few days, to pull the trigger on the deal, and it may sound like, well, sounds like it may happen tomorrow.
So, Bartley, what else happened at City Hall today?
Well, the pandemic is long over, but one councillor is still upset some city employees are working from home. Transcona councillor Russ Wyatt says he wants them all back in the office.
We know that productivity is directly affected. I even heard recently of employees working from their seasonals, from their cottages.
Wyatt said studies show workers are slacking off at home, and I asked him to name one of those studies. He could not. Regardless, the city's interim chief administrative officer is already looking at this issue, and Mayor Scott Gillingham says he supports the idea of more workers in offices downtown. Brittany.
All right, thanks. That's CBC's Bartley Kivas. Well, we bring in weather specialist Riley Lachuk. And Riley, it's pretty lonely down here in the studio, but I can say that my hair is sticking still, unlike your tie up there on the rooftop.
Yeah, if we pull out the tiometer, you don't, yeah, it's windy out here. It's very windy, and it's been quite windy really throughout the day through the Red River Valley. Right now in Winnipeg, 29 degrees. We got up to 29.9 this afternoon. Let's round that up to 30. Give ourselves another 30-degree day here in the city today. Winds right now south 37, gusting to 52 at the moment. We have seen some gusts across southern Manitoba in that 60, even a gust up to 70 here in Winnipeg today. A bit less breezy back to the west, but certainly still a breezy day right across southern Manitoba. We are looking at winds continuing as we get into the evening tonight. 12 degrees overnight. 14 by morning and up to 23 in the afternoon. Winds do back off a little bit once we get into tomorrow, Brittany. So still a warm, but not as windy day ahead tomorrow.
All right, stay safe. Don't blow away on us up there. Yeah. Still ahead, a group of seniors took to the streets to protest rising community center fees. More on their sentiment when we return after this short break. Stay with us. A group of elderly Winnipeggers gathered today to protest rising community centre fees. They say the increases threaten the communities they've built over the years. CBC's Arturo Chang reports.
Save our centres!
Gail Wentz is a member of Good Neighbours, the city's largest seniors group. Like others, the group faces rising fees at the community centres it uses, putting it at risk. Wentz says she's built many friendships over the years and that she and her friends wouldn't know what to do without the group.
We'd all still be home and isolated, I think, because this gives us a place to go through summer and winter all the time.
Wentz was one of dozens of Winnipeg seniors outside City Hall Thursday demanding the city do better. The group say community center fees are way up from last year and are set to increase even further. They say a lot of their members are on fixed income and can't afford losing their programs.
Rents are being increased by 10 times or more to what we have been used to paying. And a number of our organizations can't survive.
The senior says that coming together at community centers gives them a sense of purpose and helps fight loneliness. But they fear they may be getting priced out.
That senior community is not decreasing in size. It is increasing. We've paid taxes 40, 50, 60 years to this city to be tossed out.
Some of the groups say they may have to quadruple fees for members or face shutting down. The mayor says officials are in talks with them and that the city is trying to find ways to accommodate them. Arturo Chang, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Some of Manitoba's newest nurses say the rewards of the job outweigh the challenges. 170 Red River College graduates were welcomed to the profession at a ceremony yesterday. Emma Egger is one of them. She says it's been worth it, even if she and other new nurses face the consequences of a labor shortage.
Only been working for about a month, but I've already kind of had a bit of a taste of that, and it's definitely challenging, but we all understand it, and so we're all there just to help each other out. If you have the heart for it, then you can overcome most of the challenges.
This is the largest class of nursing graduates the school has seen since the pandemic. Many of these nurses spent their practicum placements in rural and remote communities as far south as Altona and Killarney and as far north as Pimachikamak Cree Nation. Now, one of those 170 graduates is Tiana Verreja. She has wanted to be a nurse since she was a child, inspired, she says, by her mother. And now her wishes come true. She spoke with Marcy Marcusa this morning.
Overall, like from a young age, my mom was a nurse, so I kind of watched her growing up. I went to like the Bring Your Kid to Work Day and all that stuff, so I got to see what that experience was like. And I'm a very empathetic person, so I've always just wanted to help people, and I felt that nursing would be a good fit for me in that sense. So yeah, I kind of worked in the healthcare field as I could, becoming a healthcare aide and then an undergrad nurse, and then now a nurse.
You worked in the children's emergency. That's where you did your practicum, I understand.
Yeah, that's correct.
What was it about that department that you enjoy? Tell us a little bit about the experiences that stay with you.
Absolutely. So I decided to start there because I wasn't too sure where I wanted to go originally. I worked in a trauma surgery department as an undergrad nurse for about a year and a half, and I really enjoyed that. But I wanted to try something different, and I was hemming and hawing working with kids versus adults. So I figured I'd give it a go because my mom's best friend and also my Auntie Heather works in Children's Emerge. So she pushed me a little bit there. So I decided to work there, and it was honestly very eye-opening, very such a good learning curve. You get to see a variety of anywhere from a day or two old up to the age of 18. So you never know what's going to walk in the door. So I felt that my critical thinking skills, as well as just learning new diseases, diagnoses, anything every day, just really challenges me. And it's been an honor to work there so far, and a learning curve every day for sure.
What about the days when you worked in trauma and such? What was that like? Like on the bad days, most of us that aren't in a profession like yours cannot really imagine being in the thick of someone's worst moment.
Yeah, it can definitely be rough. Like it's not all sunshine and rainbows like people think. I feel like it's about having a good support system when times are rough, and also being there for families in their worst moments, right? It's hard for them, but also it can be mentally draining on you as well. So I think having a good support system and having good teamwork within the department as well helps a lot with that.
I'm guessing that I shouldn't guess. I should just ask you. I wonder whether or not you face sort of people asking why you would choose this profession, because we all know that, especially with the pandemic, highlighted the need for nurses, the love for nurses, but then also after the pandemic, just a lot of nurses talking about burnout and about not feeling appreciated. And there's so much work to do in our system right now. It's just a reality. Did anyone question why you chose the profession?
Yes, definitely. My uncle always asked me, I don't know how you do it. I don't understand. But honestly, it's still just like the whole purpose and premise about nursing is to take care of people and those in need in their worstest times. And taking care of the vulnerable population as well as just being there for the others. I understand sometimes it's really busy and hectic, and I know burnout is most definitely a thing, and working short definitely sucks, but I still probably wouldn't change it.
Well, yet if you're going to stay in Manitoba?
Currently, yes. I'm currently working full-time in Children's Emerge. I don't have any plans of leaving. Manitoba is my home. It's where my friends and family are. And I so far have found that there's a lot of job opportunities within Manitoba. So far I'm staying here.
Congratulations to Tiana and the rest of those graduates. Marie Sinclair's memoir is being launched in Winnipeg tonight. Who We Are explores the life and career of Manitoba's first Indigenous judge. Sinclair is also a former senator and was the chief commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Lorena Fontaine is head of the Department of Indigenous Studies at the University of Manitoba. She's the mother of Sinclair's granddaughter. Fontaine says there aren't a lot of books about Indigenous leaders in Canada. She says many of them endure hardships in life. They also continue to advocate for Indigenous peoples today.
I'm so incredibly grateful that Murray took the time to document his life, because Canadians need to know what he's been through, and the tremendous effort that he's made, the inspirations he's drawn from his family in order to do the work that he did.
Tonight's book launch takes place at the RBC Convention Centre at 7 o'clock. Sinclair himself won't be there as he's undergoing treatment in hospital. Let's bring back in Riley Lachak, who is up on the rooftop tonight. And Riley, it's so nice to see you still up there.
Yeah.
How are things going? It's still windy, it looks like.
Still very windy, but you know, I think the heat and the sunshine up here really makes up for it, soaking in some of those last warm rays of, I guess, this extended summer before we get into the cooler temperatures, which I'll talk about. Let's look at some of our daytime highs from today, because boy, oh boy, temperatures today a good 10, even 15 degrees above seasonal for this time of the year. Portage getting rounding up to 32 degrees this afternoon. Winkler, Morden, 31. 30 in Winnipeg, officially 29.9, but I think we can round that up to get the 30 this afternoon. 31 in Brandon, 26 in Thompson. I did mention a bit of a cool down in terms of our long range outlook. Looking at our 10-day temperature trend for our nighttime lows, usually by about late September, we would start to get into that range of first frost, but that is nowhere to be seen, not till we get to early October. Temperatures really staying above zero. There is a hint that we could maybe see close to freezing once we get to the 3rd of October there with that 2-degree low, but we'll keep our eye on that. So far, though, it looks like temperatures are staying above seasonal for the long-range trend. Mainly sunny skies today. We have seen a little bit of cloud cover as a result of that area of low pressure in Saskatchewan. Couple millimeters of rain to far northwestern parts of Manitoba. That clears by morning, back to a mainly sunny sky, maybe a couple of stray showers through northern Manitoba once again by the time we get into the day on Friday. Saturday, Sunday, back into a mainly sunny sky, and the trend really continues until we turn the page into next week, which I'll get to in the long range forecast. Winds stay strong through the night tonight. Even overnight winds looking at about 20, gusting 40 out of the west and out of the southwest. It's not until we get to the morning that we start to see things really dying off, particularly in Westman. But look, in Churchill, winds gusting up to 70 through the day tomorrow as a result of that area of low pressure making its way across into parts of Nunavut. So winds a lot more bearable tomorrow. Good if you're heading to the football game tomorrow evening. The Elks in town, of course, at 7 o'clock, looking at a 23-degree high in Winnipeg tomorrow. A pair of 26s for Saturday into Sunday. And then I mentioned we turned the page a little bit there. 16 for Monday, a good chance of showers. And Brittany, we're looking at a 15-degree high on Tuesday, partly cloudy. Temperature staying more seasonal as we get later into next week, which I'll have in your long range coming up later on.
All right. Thanks so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Grain producers are bracing for impact after workers at Vancouver port terminals go on strike. The latest on how this halt will hurt farmers next. A strike continues at some of Canada's busiest grain terminals. Workers at the Port of Vancouver walked off the job on Tuesday, backing up shipments of this year's harvest. CBC's Aaron Collins takes a look at the impact on farmers and the government's response.
Harvest time on the prairies. This canola off the field and into the bins, ready for market, about 90% of it for export. But a strike at Metro Vancouver's grain terminals is complicating things this year.
If the grain isn't moving at the port, the rail lines can't put it there. That means we can't deliver it to the elevator and we can't get paid to pay our bills.
Producers across the prairies urging the federal government to intervene. Ottawa did just that last month, forcing rail employees back to work after their strike threatened this year's harvest. But the federal government not ready to go that far yet.
Unions in this country have the right to strike. They have the right to collective bargaining. And I can tell you as a prairie minister, as an Alberta minister, we have a bumper crop this year and we need to get it to markets.
A lingering strike at the port will cost Canadian farmers tens of millions of dollars. It could also make some international customers think twice about buying Canadian crops.
That reputation might be damaged and either cost us money because there's more risk involved, or cost us customers as they go to other markets to try and find something that is more dependable.
Canada's canola farmers are already facing a cloudy future. China, their second biggest customer, mulling tariffs on Canadian canola, a response to Canada slapping a hefty import tax on Chinese EVs, a worry on farms across the prairies.
So harvest is all about filling these bins. It's a stressful time. This year's even more stressful.
Yeah, I mean, this year we had the rail strike during the summer. We have an ongoing port strike right now. We have the looming China tariffs that are going to impact our market here. So it's just an extra stressful time of year.
A federal mediator met with both sides in Vancouver's grain terminal strike today. Negotiations watched closely on farms and combines on the other side of the Rockies. Aaron Collins, CBC News near Didsbury, Alberta.
As of today, Canadian businesses face new limits on the hiring of temporary foreign workers. The program had ballooned in the years after the pandemic, but now the federal government is trying to rein it in. CBC's Paula Duhatchek explains.
The owner of this Mexican restaurant relies on cooks from Mexico to keep his business running.
We are an authentic niche restaurant. It's very difficult to find that kind of experience where the food would come out consistently to our standards.
But new rules may keep him from rehiring his temporary foreign workers when their contracts expire. Only 10% of staff can now be hired through the low-wage program, down from 20%. In regions with high unemployment, they can't use it at all. Mike Aitken figures that's where he may lose out.
Without the cooks that we have, I think our doors will be closed.
Another change, contracts are now limited to 1 year. The program's guidelines were loosened in the wake of the pandemic to help businesses deal with labor shortages.
But today's economy is very different from it was 2 years ago. Inflation has started to come down, employment is higher, and we no longer need as many temporary foreign workers.
I think these changes make sense.
Some economists say businesses shouldn't rely on low-wage temporary workers to fill shortages and should raise wages to attract local workers instead.
We have to decide as a country what's our policy priority. Is it to see wage growth and reducing wage inequality, or is it to support restaurants? I think most Canadians would choose the former.
The industry group, Restaurants Canada, says it generally agrees with the shift the government is making, but wants federal help to fill ongoing vacancies.
For us, it's a matching and training program to help newcomers, asylum claimants, to join the workforce and join our industry.
Exceptions to the new rules will be allowed in some industries like healthcare and construction, and the government says it plans to monitor the labor market in the months ahead and could make more changes down the road. Paula Duhatchek, CBC News, Calgary.
Canada is expected to announce a new greenhouse gas emissions target in December. Today, the country's top climate advisors released their recommendations on what that target should be. The CBC's David Thurton reports.
Canada is one of the highest emitting countries in the world. We are a top 10 emitter of greenhouse gases per person, but also in total. And we have to think about that.
Climate scientist Simon Donner says because we are a big polluter, Canada's climate commitments should be big as well. Donner co-chairs the Net Zero Advisory Body, making him and his group some of the country's top climate advisors. The government has asked his group to recommend what our new 2035 climate target should be. That goal will be announced before the end of this year. Canada's current target is as much as a 45% emissions reduction by 2030. The Net Zero Advisory Body is recommending Canada commit to reducing its emissions by up to 55% by 2035, a difference of more than 70 megatons in 5 years. That new goal will bring Canada in line with the U.S. and other Western countries, according to Donner.
50 to 55% falls out as a very reasonable target range. It also works out that helps us match, not quite match, but at least come close to the ambition we're seeing from our major trading partners and allies.
Canada's Environment Minister has received those recommendations, but he is downplaying expectations before revealing Canada's new target in December.
It needs to be ambitious, but we also need to be able to have some understanding of how we get there. I'm not a big fan of setting targets where we have no idea how we will get there.
Guy Lebeau says his office is still figuring out the right balance. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
The president of France is in Canada for a brief visit. Emmanuel Macron held meetings with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Ottawa and Montreal.
What a real pleasure, it always is, to welcome my friend Emmanuel Macron to Canada. Obviously, throughout the year, we have lots of opportunities to talk and exchange and work together on large issues, but having you here is a real pleasure, as always.
Two leaders discussed numerous issues ranging from the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East to unrest in Haiti, foreign interference, and the environment. The two leaders attended a luncheon in Montreal, and the French president met with Quebec Premier François Legault. Macron made his Canadian stop on his way home from the UN General Assembly this week in New York. Hopes for a ceasefire in the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah have all but vanished. Both sides have stepped up actions in northern Israel and southern Lebanon, ignoring international calls for a 21-day pause. CBC's Chris Brown has the latest.
Hopes that this war could at least pause momentarily didn't survive the morning. Israeli airstrikes hit southern Lebanon first and then smashed into a Beirut apartment building. The IDF says the militia group's commander responsible for drones was killed. The death toll has soared to over 700, including many women and children. This peaceful family was bombed, said Ali Samaha from a village in the Bekaa Valley. 16 people were killed in a night. This is not a military center. Israeli officials from the Prime Minister on down seemingly rejected a U.S.-French proposal for a 21-day ceasefire. We're continuing to hit Hezbollah with full force and will not stop until we achieve all our goals, said Benjamin Netanyahu en route to the UN General Assembly. In northern Israel, machinery and troops appeared to be building up near the border.
There's a siren. Yeah.
As our CBC News team headed in that direction, sirens sounded. Overhead, Israel's missile defenses intercepted Hezbollah rockets. The Iran-backed group may be wounded, but on this day, there were near constant alerts with dozens of rockets fired into Israel.
And this is the impact of at least one or more of those Hezbollah rockets. A fire up in the hills a couple of hundred meters behind these homes in the city of Kiryat Shimona, a community that's been largely evacuated for almost a year now.
Israel has made ending these cross-border attacks a new war goal so that tens of thousands of people can return home, says IDF spokesperson Doron Spielman.
For over a year, we've been sitting patiently, absorbing blow after blow after blow, while dealing with Gaza, where Hamas is trying to kill us. And Hezbollah in the north took an advantage. They see Israel's vulnerable.
In the nearby town of Safed, people wholeheartedly said no to a ceasefire with Hezbollah.
If you negotiate, you're regarded as weak. The only thing they understand is force.
We've been living with rockets throwing at us for years. What country would ever allow that to happen?
Although much of the world is engaged in trying to pull both Israel and Hezbollah back from an even more awful confrontation, the signs we saw in this key border area all suggested it's not happening. Chris Brown, CBC News in northern Israel.
still ahead, why we're in a storage locker full of bikes in Winnipeg, and who's benefiting from all of these bikes that are getting fixed up. That story is coming up.
Well, it's no longer just lonely little old me. Back in studio is Riley. It's less windy in here.
It's far less windy in here. I know that the air conditioning's on, but it's not as windy as it is out there right now.
We've been talking about this extended summer right now. Good time in the next few days to get outside for a bike ride.
Definitely. I would definitely take advantage, especially with the calmer and warmer evenings. Great night to get out on the sidewalks, on the streets,
And that leads right into Riley's assignment that he was out on. So dozens of inner city youth will be riding their new bikes as we head into fall. The Spence Neighbourhood Association has been busy fixing up dozens of donated bikes that will be given away on Saturday.
I caught up with Christy McCoskey with the Spence Neighbourhood Association yesterday, where they were fixing up a whole bunch of bikes. I started by asking her why they started collecting and fixing up all of these bikes.
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I work with children at Spence Neighborhood Association, and there was a 12-year-old newcomer boy who had told me that he had saved up his money, his allowance, for a very, very long time to buy a bike, and he was so excited. He had never had one before at 12 years old. And the next day I asked him, did you go buy your bike? And he said, no, we had to use it for groceries. And that continued each week. He kept saying, no, we've had to use the money again for groceries. And so I immediately thought, well, I'm going to get you a bike somehow. And I mentioned it to someone and they said, well, let's just get all the kids' bikes in the Spence neighborhood. So it just grew. The city has donated a bunch. Southside Cycle has donated, as has the Wrench.
So when you're hearing this story from this 12-year-old, what's going through your mind when you're hearing a story like this where he's worked so hard to save up this money and can't quite get that bike?
It was something that I could not relate to. As a child, I always had a bike. But he was so understanding about it too that I just thought, oh, you have such good character for a 12-year-old. And yeah, I just immediately thought, we'll get you a bike.
What does having a bike mean to some of these kids and their families, especially in the Spence neighborhood and parts of the inner city?
I see these kids bored out of their minds, and then they get up to no good. So they're in the park, and they're watching like the one kid that has a bike, and the bikes that some of the kids have aren't proper, and they don't work well. They come from like like more the chop shop. They're just created without quality. But yeah, they're bored, and they long to have that freedom to just go.
What's the response from the city been like?
Great. Yeah, we've gone all over the city picking up bikes, from Charleswood to North Kildonan. I've had friends that have picked up like 20 just on the free weekend. Yeah, the city's been wonderful.
So how many bikes do you have in here right now? Because there's bikes everywhere, bikes through the hallways, bikes in the locker.
Right, yeah, I think we're over 70.
Okay, and what's happening with these bikes? Once they're fixed up, I know you guys have been working hard to make sure that these bikes are fixed, they're working, the chains are oiled. What happens next?
We have a barbecue this Saturday on the 28th at the Merc, which is at 430 Langside, and they are going to children in the Spence neighborhood area. So we've invited parents and families from the program that I work within at Building Belonging, but then whoever wants to show up and get in line, hopefully we'll have a bike for everyone.
If people still have stuff to donate, bikes, maybe they're cleaning out the garage this week or something, are they still able to bring them down to you?
They can bring them down to me any day of the year. I would love to just keep this going and give bikes to kids all year long. The bikes that we have received are for children like 2 to 13, 14. And so even if we got adult bikes, because I know a lot of the adults are requesting bikes now as well. So if people want to give it to us, we'll find it a good home for sure.
This weekend, are you hoping that all of these bikes are gone?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I don't want any left over.
What a great cause.
Yes, Spence Neighborhood Association, they'll take your bikes if you don't want them.
And Saturday, that's where you can go.
Exactly. On a more serious note, I want to talk about the hurricane that's, of course, been now hammering, not just battering, absolutely hammering parts of Florida and the Gulf Coast states. I want to show you a live look now. This is of Naples, Florida, as we head into the evening hours here. The main area of the hurricane, of Hurricane Helene, has now moved further north, but you can still see just how high some of that storm surge is here and how strong some of those winds are as we get through the evening hours here. Up to 380 millimeters of rain is possible, winds higher than 200 kilometers an hour, and storm surge as high as 6 meters hitting the shore. This is a wall of water coming at you in some cases. A swath of Georgia to Tennessee has been threatened, even Atlanta now under a warning. Northern Georgia, parts of Western Carolina now under flash flood warnings as well. So a very, very dangerous situation in parts of the southern United States. Here is where that hurricane is now at a Category 4, sustained winds at 215 kilometers an hour. Naples in the Fort Myers area, the eye of that hurricane now making its way up toward Tallahassee and the Big Bend area of Florida. This is where it's going to make a direct hit as we get into the evening here. Tallahassee basically getting a direct hit from this Category 4 hurricane. Even as we get into the overnight hours, sustaining that Category 4 strength with hurricane warnings still up the coast into Georgia, hitting parts of Atlanta and Georgia as a Category 2 hurricane into the early morning hours. Tomorrow, before it starts to kind of dissipate and die off a little bit here. This won't have a direct hit on weather in Canada. However, parts of southern Ontario, particularly southwestern Ontario, could see some of the outer bands of rain and some wind from this storm as we get further, particularly into the weekend. So very dangerous situation unfolding in the southern United States as we get into the evening hours here. Back to our weather here at home. This is a picture of Gordon. Thank you so much, Holly, for sending this picture in. Gordon, she says, is named after the late Gord Downey. So a very fitting name. You can send your pics to talkback at cbc.ca. Waking up to 14 degrees tomorrow. A lot less windy tomorrow. 23 by the afternoon, 21 in the evening. Winds dying off to about 10 through the evening hours. Look at your temperatures tonight. Still quite gusty, particularly through the Red River Valley. Single-digit lows into Westman at 6 overnight tonight, 7 in Swan River, Peguis at 9 overnight tonight. Mostly clear skies for the most part. Maybe a few more showers to come through northwestern Manitoba. Otherwise, we're looking at a partly cloudy sky overnight tonight across the north. All right, skies do clear a bit as we get through the day on Friday. Could see a couple more sprinkles as we get through the afternoon. Not much to write home about. Temperatures, though, staying above seasonal through northern Manitoba, 21 in Grand Rapids. In the south, nothing but sunshine tomorrow. Don't have a lot to talk about. Temperatures, Brittany, in the mid-20s.
All right, thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Still ahead, long after the wildfires are out, the environmental impacts remain, sometimes for a decade. What scientists are learning about how forests retain heat after being burned. Stay with us. The devastation of wildfires has become a familiar sight. Now, new research indicates a less obvious but long-lasting environmental impact from the intense heat they generate. The CBC's Anand Ram has the story.
When this intense wall of fire dies down, even in the seemingly lifeless aftermath, the heat continues.
We found a widespread warming effect 1 year after the fire events.
In northern forests around the world, new research reveals the larger the fire, the longer those warmer temperatures will stick around.
We have like 14 years of data, and we do see the residual kind of effects is even last that long, 14 years.
Color drives some of that warming. Blackened earth is less reflective of the sun's heat. Canada's boreal forest is vulnerable because of the type of trees.
Spruce, fir, pine. As a result, it easily ignites and it can burn quite easily.
In these parts of the world, when needled trees burned, researchers found the land warming effect lasted. But in these areas, dominated by more leafy trees with more moisture, fires left little to no residual heat.
Deciduous trees, when a fire roars along, if it hits a stand of, say, trembling aspen, it'll actually dwindle down and sometimes even go out.
It's more evidence in favor of replanting leafy trees in high-risk areas to break up or stall a fire before it gets too large. But experts warn it's no silver bullet, especially in intense drought like Canada saw last year.
When things are extreme, fuel is fuel is fuel. It dries out, it will burn. And so it's only a partial solution to me.
Still one to consider, as climate modeling predicts Canada will see more of these large fires in the future. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
So there is something happening tomorrow night that I thought I would give you an update on. That Bombers game happening tomorrow at 7 against the Elks. Can't give you an update on the game, but I can give you an update on the weather. 21 degrees. Sunny at kickoff. Southwest winds 15 gusting to 30, dying off to south 10 by the time we get to halftime. So a pleasant evening, probably actually one of the better evenings to be outside for a football game. Up to 23 tomorrow afternoon. Pair of 26s for Saturday, Sunday. As we head into Monday, we turn the page with a few showers through Monday, and then temperatures dipping back to more seasonal by the time we get to the later part of next week. Here's your weather photo for this evening. This is from Gary, taken in St. Vital, a blue jay, enjoying some peanuts. Send your photos to talkback@cbc.ca. Well, if you're looking for the latest trend in everyday wear, do not ask me for fashion advice. Maybe Brittany has some.
Well, tassels, rhinestones, glitter, overkill? We'll see. Here's your daily lift. That's all part of Swiss designer Kevin Germainier's spring-summer collection for next year. And if that name sounds familiar, he was involved in the Paris Olympic Games opening ceremony, including dressing up some characters that sparked a little controversy.
Germainier is also known to use recycled materials in his design. He made this collection for Paris Fashion Week using stuff from Olympic costumes and from previous projects.
You know what? Fashion loves a little controversy.
I don't know if I could rock any of those.
We'll have to see. See you tomorrow. Have a great night.